In the 14th Istanbul Apparel Conference, we continue with our sessions and we will continue to learn new things. We have a very distinguished guest with us, as Business Academy General Manager Çiğdem Dönmez. Welcome. Now, in this part, we'll be just discussing about ERP and about ERP projects. First of all, what is ERP? Let's start with that. And then maybe in particular, enterprise resource planning, what are the common requirements? Now, first of all, this is the 14th Apparel Conference, and it is recoding fashion. And I think I'll be speaking about software and coding, actually. ERP software are used for the efficient management of all operational processes in a corporate, in an enterprise. Why there is the need for an ERP software in a corporation? Because you have to manage very complicated, sophisticated processes, especially in the field of textile and apparel, from yarn actually to cloth, to printing, to garment, to in particular apparel. It has several different processes. At the same time, there is design and fashion. At the same time, some innovative processes. Therefore, there's so much speed, so much dynamism. And on the top of this, so as to manage all these parameters, there's actually the need for some efficient software programs so that you can actually better manage. So enterprise resource planning is where it comes from. Specific to apparel, from design, again, graphic, and you start with an output, then putting the product in the store, on the shelf, and then assessment by the customer and feedback from the customer, then back to the production. So quite a dynamic process. So the ERP is actually everywhere at the apparel industry, I would say. And the technique, the software itself, there's also the art, the design side as well. So everything is blended all together. Maybe that's very specific when compared to the other industries, because once you set fashion, it's all about the dream in the mind of the designer. So they're relatively more technical processes like finance, like accounting, like production. You have to link it to several different operational processes. And looking at the restrictions of the industry, there's global competition. There's so much diversity. More number of orders, but orders that are in smaller quantities, some differences in pattern, in size, and so on, all different variables, then managing it manually is almost impossible. Ms. Dönmez, what is the correct solution? How you should select it? It must be flexible, customized, and scalable solutions. What do I mean by this? For example, even at the companies, at the ready-wear companies that are serving to the same customers, there could be some corporate-specific solutions. So I think the ERP must be tailored to the requirements of that specific company. Once you do so, there are certain requirements of a company. It could be, for example, sustainability. Now, the customers are much more aware, and therefore there is much more conscious on their side. So a consumer, once, for example, buying a product, would like to know about the cotton of origin of that product, for example, where the country of origin of the cotton used, or product ID, yarn, the batch number, and very detailed. I mean, even a specific information very specific to the production may be asked by the customer. So there's the need for a very sound ERP solution, which would be good for them. And at the same time, helpful compliance with the regulations. Sector-specific experience is important, because with 30 years of experience, we have done a lot of projects in the industry. If you know the industry, if you are familiar with the dynamics of the industry, and if you can speak the same language with them, then it is much easier. And I mentioned about the legal regulations. With regards to e-transformation, a lot has come. We actually have e-invoice, e-export, e-dispatch form, or several different regulatory requirements, and the ERP system that you are using should respond to that. If not possible today, it should actually respond it tomorrow. So it should provide and offer that solution at the right time. We are speaking about fashion and apparel, but I think it is in the ERP solutions we also have the same. I mean, it is not only delivery of the service that is required, because we're just going through an improvement, life is changing, technology is changing, and the tailor-made solution that you mentioned about should be transformed or should be improved, just like the fashion also, it is the same. So for the apparel industry, I mean, what are the processes specific in particular to that industry? I think maybe the triggering point is the design. Especially the solution that you offer should be triggering the process starting from the design, like conversion to sales of a design. For example, the graphic designer, success rate of the graphic designer, about the pattern that you use in that product. I mean, you have to be able to monitor different things, capacity planning accordingly, especially in the apparel industry, not only your internal planning, but you also have to make the planning of the outside against suppliers. Just like, for example, for the workshops, others, you should be able to manage it. These are things that are important. And traceability, especially with some critical methodologies, you should be able to track everything. For example, even there could be 1 to 2 weeks of very ambitious deadlines, so you have to be very efficient and you have to offer the same level of quality at a shorter period of time. So you have to have a system that is ready for this. Of course, project experience. I mean, you have to work with the teams that are experienced in those specific projects. It's a teamwork, by the way, and it is bilateral. I mean, both sides are engaged on this. For example, the ERP supplier and the ERP user, they are the stakeholders of this project. So you have to consider this as a collaborative work. Yes, efficiency of both parties affect the outcome of the project, and they have to communicate well and understand each other. The more projects that you make in that industry, it will be reflected to the next project that you have in the same specific field. And I think this also contributes a lot for our customers. So it's quite a dynamic process, of course. You mentioned ambitious deadlines, and in particular, looking at, for example, Turkey's production. It's also triggered by export, and the apparel industry is just like at the core of this, as we have already mentioned. So all these solutions are very important so as not to miss anything, I would say. And for a successful project, in the management of a successful project, what we should be careful about, I think one of the most important things is that there is a need for a project approach, and international project approaches should be used based on the requirements of each and every and specifics. And there are different methodologies like Agile and others. And depending, there is a need for a customized approach. So you need to work with certified project managers and certified project teams, well trained on this topic. It would be opening up the horizon for you. If you allow me, we discussed it in the previous sessions. It's an apparel industry conference, but we also discussed about technology and digitalization during the sessions, whether the future of fashion, the future of apparel industry, you have to discuss about technology and digitalization of the retail industry. So for your solutions, for the ERP side, for the apparel companies, what are their expectations? I mean, what they should expect from the future in terms of digitalization. It's a huge topic, by the way, digitalization on IoT, for example, Internet of Things, or machine-to-machine communication, electronic data transfer. It's all about Industry 4.0. These are all some subtitles. For the apparel industry, there are issues that could be considered as an advantage for them, but things that may actually cause some concern for them. But it's inevitable, right? Absolutely. It's inevitable for them. what you should rely on is if you work with the correct partner, solution partner, even if it is so sophisticated and complicated, still will be handled. Maybe the biggest fear of the apparel companies is that for technological investment, of course, they will make a financial investment, but how about the human resources? Whether the people would adapt to these changes, because our employee profile, would they be enough to do so? I think again, by working with the correct solution partner, why not? How about your own experience? I mean, as for the companies that have such concerns, what do you do? I mean, because it's a new step being taken. I mean, with regards to your employees, if they have such, with regards to their human resources, is it possible to overcome that problem? Yes, of course. Everyone initially have this problem, especially we provide training initially, so we train their employees and. We do everything together. I mean, they have to feel that it's a collaborative work and they can do it together. So the other thing is, once they actually get the outcomes, while the work is in progress, they also are much more enthusiastic about the rest of the project. For example, Kenya's 4O technology is one that we use. Yes, Kenya's is actually integrated ERP, resource planning, but IoT and IIoT or big data analysis, we offer all these things to the customers. And once they come across with such integrated approaches, they feel that the project implementation would be much more easier. Of course, the companies in particular, whether they are ready for such a transformation or not, we talk to the companies, and I would be happy if you mentioned this. I think the companies should feel themselves ready for this above all. I don't know, maybe then comes the HR, but probably about being prepared for this transformation, looking at the apparel industry, at which level we are, I mean, or in terms of technology. Maybe, I don't know, you can make some comparisons as well. I think the awareness is very much raised in the apparel industry, because apparel companies at the same time, they actually compare themselves with their competitors. So they also feel so excited and they feel that they can do it. And in the projects that we do, we always share our previous project experiences with them, and saying that the challenges that you will go through are valid for the others as well, and how we offer solutions to them. I think it makes them feel more comfortable. And the best practice, we offer them the best practice, especially we share our success stories with them. And therefore, in particular, once they observe that companies that went through such challenges succeed eventually, they also feel themselves prepared for this. But I think it's a dynamic process, right? I mean, once you start an ERP project, you're on the journey, and sometimes the project is open-ended. And it is something that happens on both sides, I would say. There is actually, it moves on in the form of a dialogue, mutual dialogue. And I think it's an ongoing process. Maybe you can elaborate more on this. For example, if they have any trouble, what do you do? How do you solve this problem? And then we will wrap up. ERP projects are just like marriage. It's like a marriage. I mean, you actually get married and then you continue to live together like a Catholic marriage. So, and I would say it's a project-based work. So, project means something that starts, that ends. But once you go live on a ERP project, it is over as a project. But of course, your communication is long-term. And the ERP is also dynamic. It's all about the company's lives are full of changes. And with regards to ERP, they have to do a revision in return for each and upcoming requirement. It could be a technological development. It could be, it actually can require a regulation. So therefore, it is something that should be reflected in their operations, and they manage everything with the ERP. So I would say it's just like a long run marriage. So I hope it will actually bore good. So General Manager of IAS Business Academy, Çiğdem Dönmez, thank you very much And we discussed about ERT and Industry 4.0 solutions in the textile and apparel industry. We'll move on with the next session.